Perfect. We're rolling. All right. So here we go. My story. I knew immediately, right out of college, that having a normal job was not for me. I started in the fitness industry. Never really had a 9 to 5. I was like a salary guy. It was a good transition for me because I was a college athlete, played baseball my whole life, and fitness just was kind of one of those things. But I slowly, finally, by the age of 24, met Jesus, found out who I was, really wanted to kind of start going for my goals rather than just kind of going to work every day. One of those things was speaking. Obviously, fitness is still a passion of mine. But my personal development journey started during that time frame in like my mid-20s. And all these books that I was reading, one book specifically that changed my life was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I'm sure you guys have all read that book. Raise your hand if you have not read that book.
What is it?
I'm in process.
Okay. So this is your first. This is your first must. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Well, raise your hand if you've heard of the book. Okay, thank you. Okay, by Robert Kiyosaki. I read, obviously, reading the Bible, obviously, but then I really needed to kind of start to build my financial competency, financial intelligence. I grew up in a family where my parents worked their butts off their entire life, but it was paycheck to paycheck. They always had the mindset of like, we can't afford this, we can't. However, they took huge strides in coming here to America. But me as a first generation, I kind of want to set that foundation financially, and real estate was obviously that thing, because all of these books, these personal development books, they talk about wealth, and everything led to real estate. So we'll touch on some of this, but I want to encourage you to kind of do that. That's why it's called self-development. Take advantage of it. That's to relax. Oh, somebody else is coming here. She's a good guard dog while she shakes her tail. Hey guys, what's up? Coffee, water? You guys want to take a chair? How's it going?
Good.
Hey guys, everybody, that's Pat, and I'm sorry, what's your name, brother?
Tom.
Tom.
What's going on, Pat? How you doing?
All right. Hey, we're just getting started.
Hey, Pat. How you doing? Good. Okay.
All right. So what Rich Dad Poor Dad, really quick, just to kind of set the premise for this talk today. He emphasizes like these 4 quadrants, right? You're an employee, which is where I was. You're self-employed, which is eventually when I left my full-time salary job, I became self-employed. Most High Fitness was an in-home personal training business because now I had more control over my time. And then business owner, he has in the quadrants. Let me write this down so you guys can see it. Might as well take advantage of the whiteboard. Okay, so employee. This isn't even in my outline, by the way. Employee, self-employed, right? Business owner, and investor. And eventually in the book, he talks about like how we need to get to this, investor, right? Because as an employee, you pay your taxes first, all that good stuff. Self-employed, which is good, you can control your money, but you still are working in the business, not on the business, which is this, and eventually investing. We all want to get to the point, hopefully, of having our money work for us, right? That's why we want to get in real estate. Hello?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, yeah, so that's kind of like the why of real estate. Now, I like to touch on this because I think it's important. There are 4 to 5 industries that are necessary for the world to operate. We'll start with, for instance, we need to eat, right? So the food industry. Don't worry, I'm going somewhere with this. I don't want to be a chef. I don't want to work at the grocery store. But we need it, right? I don't walk around naked, right? So we need clothes. So the retail industry. Trust me, I wear black, plain shirts. Not going to be working at a retail store, but it's necessary. Number 3, I would say, is the medical field. My first major was actually nursing. Then there was chemistry. I was like, what the hell is this? And then I moved into communications, which is kind of funny. But I knew I didn't want to be a doctor. That wasn't going to work for me. Could you guys guess what the last one is? The shelter business. Right? Shelter biz, we'll put that. Which is real estate. Right? There's a roof over our head, we need a place to live. That's where I was like, okay. But growing up, you know, and especially in college, like renting and dealing with landlords, the only thing I knew about real estate was, man, this property just got destroyed by us in college. And I knew that I had to pay my rent every single month. Never, ever, ever did the mind cross of like, man, I want to own this real estate. I want to freaking be the one getting the check every single month. Wow, I'm off doing whatever I want. You know, so that's the reason why I wanted to get into real estate. So we're gonna continue with why real estate. That's my people coming. Hey guys, come on in. Super laid back. Brandy and Pastor Doug. Sorry. Everybody say hi.
Hi.
You guys want some coffee, water? Yeah, and you guys can sit. There's 2 seats here.
Oh, great.
Let them get situated, guys. No worries here. I told them, you guys have 2 kids,
Yeah.
dogs.
Young kids.
Yeah, but they're here, so I appreciate it.
Yep, me too.
Sit in front, right?
Yeah, you guys sit wherever you want. And guys, I was just talking briefly. I was talking briefly just to get you guys caught up. You know, you have the food industry, you have the retail industry, you have the medical field, which are necessary. I didn't see myself in any of those, but real estate, the shelter business was one that I actually saw, like, whoa, I could actually see myself doing it because I didn't want to be a doctor. Anyways, that's where we're at. So now, the why for real estate. Why is real estate, you know, known to build wealth, create financial freedom, all that good stuff? Assets, right? So if you haven't read Rich Dad Poor Dad, he talks more about assets versus liabilities, right? Assets are something that build A, your net worth, and B, pay you instead of actually costing you money. Whereas a liability, right, like if you buy like a Lamborghini or something, you're gonna have to pay for that every single month. It's not essentially happening. So he talks about, hey, buy the asset that pays you monthly to pay for the liability. So it's never actually really coming out of your personal income. It's coming out of one of your assets. So huge mental, or what I like to call, Dr. Lipton, he's a epigenetic doctor, talks about conscious adjustment instead of saying like a mental shift of just starting to think more about putting your money to work rather than you essentially trading hours for dollars, which we all do at one time. Or there's the grumbling.
Yeah, we'll fix it.
Yeah, we're gonna fix that. No idea what that is. Okay, build your net worth. So why for real estate? You have 10 properties that cost that are $100,000, that are worth $100,000. You're a millionaire, technically on paper, right? But let's not stop there. So that's another cool advantage. Passive income. Now, for some of us, may not necessarily know. Can somebody tell us what passive income is? Anybody?
Income that comes in every month. Technically, you don't have to do anything for it to keep coming in.
Right. Sleeping money, right? Mail money, whatever the case is. That's what real estate provides for you. Obviously through rental properties, a lot of other things. But this is essentially, I think, where we all want to get to, or this should be the goal for all of us. Fix and flips, which is what we're going to be talking about and diving into here in a little bit, is an active source of income, which then could be back and reinvested into what passive income is. So let me give you an example of that. I started my business, it'll be in April, 2 years. And just now, I'm starting to reinvest some of that money back into rentals, which is neat. We just finished one up, which we'll talk about. But the money from flips, active income, was reinvested back into one of these cash flowing properties, which is my asset. Okay? We can talk more about that, but you definitely gotta read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Another cool why for real estate, obviously, is why we're here, is flips. So I'll put, profits. I'll talk about in a second our first deal and essentially how we funded that deal. My first intention with that deal was to rent it out, but I bought it so right that it made sense to flip it. There's so many tax advantages. Yeah, we're gonna get that fixed, don't worry. That's right.
It's like a garage door that just keeps opening.
Yeah,
It sounds like gross.
yeah, there's something going on, but that's okay. The house is wide. Tax advantages, so depreciation, appreciation, all that good stuff. Very little tax on passive income, right? And then we'll dive in a little bit as to how you can create LLCs or different sort of entities so that you could avoid paying self-employment tax. See, there's so many layers to this that I think it's important that we talk about why real estate is just so good for you. Partnerships, I've done plenty of these. This is cool. You can go in on deals with people. Obviously, you want to make sure your paperwork is right, attorneys are involved, your guidelines are set, because you got to protect yourself. You got to protect yourself, but at the same time, you got to make sure your roles are in the right place with whomever it is that you're going to be working with, and the expectations. And then leverage. And what I mean about leverage, there's so many more, guys, but just for time's sake, we'll stop at leverage. So leverage is a wonderful thing. For instance, like with this house, my goal with this house, I want to do what's called the BRRRR method. We're not going to go into that, but essentially what you do with the BRRRR is you buy the house in cash, you renovate it, you rent it out, and then you do a refinance so you can pull your cash out and then put a tenant in there to pay the monthly cost. It's an incredible way to build this, to have that, to have this, to get a little bit of this, because say for instance this house, I'm hoping to set the appraisal high of 150K, because it'll be a 4.2 when we're done with it. 80% of that, the bank will give me loan to value, so $120,000, and I plan on being somewhere around like 100K into this deal, so essentially I'm flipping it to myself for maybe a shorter cost, but I have the longevity of this. And then we get this because we hold it for longer than a year. So there's capital gains tax, which we won't essentially get in here. Questions on this stuff? No? Okay. That's why real estate is really, really important. Oh, but my favorite thing for why real estate, see, that's why it helps to have my little outline here. By the way, guys, that's Jim. He's amazing. Except on that, but that's okay. We'll get there. We just closed. We don't really know what that is. I texted the seller and he didn't respond. So maybe that's not a good sign. I was here by myself yesterday setting this up, and I'm just like the house was literally shaking, and I'm like, is this place haunted? But again, if it's a furnace, at the end of the day, that's something that can get replaced. My favorite thing though, after all those things that I just listed, my favorite thing about real estate is this. Wish I had that song. Freedom, freedom. I couldn't be managed. I didn't want to do the 9 to 5. I want to work for myself. Real estate so far, out of all the things that I've done in my short entrepreneurial journey or like solopreneur journey, from doing fitness, speaking nationwide, all those things are great, but you're also working in the business, not as sustainable as real estate, and it provides me with the most important thing, which is freedom, so I can spend it with my wife, my daughter. I'm the only dad that gets to take my daughter to school on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So that's a pretty special thing, if she sees daddy do that stuff, which is totally different than how I grew up. And she's at a private school. Crazy. It's like, what the hell? But it's a blessing and it's an honor to do that stuff. So real estate has obviously done that. So now will, where's my marker, right, my hand, will transition into my first deal. One of the things that, remember, back to that, let's just keep this quadrant up there. Remember, employee, self-employed, business, investor. I want to get to this. He stresses the fact that money essentially is your best employee. So how was I supposed to get there? So when I left my full-time job, remember I became self-employed, he talks about creating multiple sources of income. This is vital. Does anybody know who Warren Buffett is?
Yes.
Who is he? There you go. He was at one point the richest man in the world, but he always talks about having multiple sources of income, so never relying on one. And guys, we're going to talk about money today. Like, we have to. And you need to remove the negative thought of like wanting money. Because I grew up Christian, actually Catholic, and I grew up with the thought that like money is the root of all evil. And essentially, if you think like that, your bank account's going to reflect those thoughts. So multiple sources of income. How was I going to do this? So I created Most High Fitness. So that was one income, right? I never paid myself out of Most High Fitness. My wife, in her own right, is a business owner. Little dance studio. Okay, so now I had a little bit of time. And the reason I wanted to leave my job originally was because I wanted to be a youth speaker and travel. So I did that. So speaking. And during this time, guys, I have another, let me see. During this time, I read another book, The Richest. Anybody finish this for me?
Man in Babylon.
Yes. Okay. Remember, I'm a guy who grew up. Parents, hardest workers in the world. Not taking anything away from them. But a lot of it was like kind of paycheck to paycheck, and I kind of fell into that rut too. The richest man in Babylon. So essentially, like the philosophy here is to learn how to save. And you need to have money in real estate. You might see ads of like, hey, buy real estate with no money down. Okay, yeah, but when you go to the closing table, you better have some freaking money. Because the city's gonna want their money. Oh yeah, another thing about real estate, everybody's got their hands out. Right, our attorneys, right, the city, the state, the utilities, our contractors, because we can't do anything without our contractors. I'll touch on that. And Jim will be talking a little bit later, flipping from a contractor's point of view. I was like, so as a self-employed business owner, I was starting to create multiple sources of income. Now I didn't go off and blow it and buy a new house like my wife wanted, and do all these things. It's like we were extremely frugal, and we saved essentially like 75% of this income. This paid for like our expenses, and I just reinvested back into this business. After a year, I had a pretty good chunk of change. Can you guys guess how much? Whatever. You guys want to know? Whatever. All right. We'll talk. We'll share a little bit. But it was essentially more than my entire year's salary, just by paying myself first. So these two books right here have changed my life. Obviously the Bible. Obviously Think and Grow Rich. I mean, these are the staples. If you haven't read these, has everybody read this book? Hey, raise your hand if you read Think and Grow Rich.
2 chapters deep.
Okay, good. Remember, this didn't happen to me until I was 27. I'm 32 now. I'm only 5 years into like my awakening. All right, so Think and Grow. These are must read because the foundations really kind of lay it down for real estate. Questions really quick about multiple sources of income. So right now, if you have a job, that's good. Yes.
How'd you get into speaking?
God. I felt like I just felt this hunch. I was super passionate about it. I was a rapper for a little while. I still rap. Yeah, I actually still rap. I'm rapping next week in Texas to 4,000 students.
Nice.
So I don't know. Again, I finally had the confidence and belief in myself to go out and do the things that I wanted to do. And I think that really, and I believe that God like put me on earth to do certain things. So it's like, if I don't do it, I'm not doing his duty on earth through my life. This isn't just about money. This is to set the foundation so that I could do what I love. All right, so Think and Grow Rich. That's how I got into speaking. Yes, sir.
The multiple incomes, obviously that's multiple things you're doing, a lot of time, like balancing that time, finding that time.
Yes. So, yes, some things are going to sacrifice. There's no such thing as work-life balance. I don't really believe in that, because I'll be with you 1 second, right? So it's like you have a job, but then you got a family, right? Social life, whatever the case may be. Some of this stuff might have to sacrifice for a little bit. Side hustles. I know you guys do a lot of side hustles, like interpretation and doing that kind of stuff, right? You guys still do that, the English interpretation?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or tutoring?
Yeah.
Yeah, or it's like, or it might be bartending, right? As long as you don't have an alcohol problem, like do something that's going to bring extra cash into your pocket, but then save it. Don't blow it. Don't blow it. This has been tough, especially in the society where we live in, where it's like you see all the cool things that your friends are buying.
Hey Miguel.
Yes, sir.
There's one more book by Kiyosaki, the cash flow
Quadrant, yeah, which is essentially this, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Yeah,
that's-
thanks, Brandon. Yeah, let's put that down. So these are, because you guys are probably like, well, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it's not in the cash flow quadrant, it's not in there. So this is the cash flow quadrant. And guys, what's the trend here, really quick, on all of this? None of this was taught at school. I didn't have a class on finance, Rich Dad Poor Dad 101.
What to do with money when you get it.
Right, exactly, right? They want you to maybe put it in a savings account, pay your bills, maybe go on vacation once in a while. There's nothing wrong with that. There's more. There's better, I think out there for us. And these books and these principles will, like, again, set the foundation if you want real estate to be the vehicle for what it is that you want to do. Right, did I get to your question?
No, I guess for multiple sources of income, would you consider multiple rental properties as multiple sources of income? Because I see and you're diversified into completely different categories, whether
Right.
it's speaking of
Well, yes, absolutely, because you're probably ahead of the game.
Right.
Right? I didn't know what I didn't know when I first wanted to get into real estate. Remember, I spent 2 years just educating myself before my first deal. Part of that maybe was fear. Part of that was, I don't know, just not getting out there and doing it. I'm gonna slowly start to segue into how all that transpired. But I needed, because I didn't have experience. Banks weren't gonna lend to me because I was self-employed. They saw income coming in, but it was within 2 years. They're like, Miguel, hey, you're making money, but essentially you don't have any assets. So I was just like, okay, I guess I have to kind of do this on my own. But that was before, knowing about private money and lines of credit and all these other cool things that now I'm starting to implement. But when I first started, it was just like, oh, I got to go to the bank and get a loan. And you need 25% down. So when I started to, the house, for instance, the first one that I'm going to talk about here, the bank was like, yeah, sure, we'll consider lending to you. It's going to be 25% down. And then I'm like, crap, there's my renovation budget. Mm-hmm. So I needed a different thing, and we'll actually kind of go into that. Can I erase this?
Mm-hmm.
You guys good on this? Okay.
The last
We'll leave
one
these
is-
up for now.
Is the last one investor? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Yes. So it's employee for the E, self-employed, right? Working for yourself. Business is running a business that runs without you actually having to be there. So systems he talks about are big. And then investor, putting your money to work, which is the best employee according to Mr. Robert Kiyosaki. Okay, so then my first deal here. All right, after 2 years of studying, reading all these things, so this is kind of what sets the doers from the people who are just going to sit and read. There's nothing wrong with reading, but you got to apply, right? The scriptures talk about, hey, you can memorize the scripture, but faith without works is dead. Again, amen?
That's right.
All right, so my first deal, 2 years, multiple sources of income, had some money put away. because of one of my businesses, Most High Fitness. It was right over here on Auburn. One of my clients was, a home client, and I noticed a for sale sign on a house that was diagonally across from their house. At this point, I was looking for deals, right? Not knowing what I'm doing, but I was just starting to look for deals, and I was like, "Oh, the house is up for sale." And they're like, "Oh, Miguel, you wanna be our neighbor?" I was like, "No, I wanna rent it out or do something." They're like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, hey, that house across the street from us is vacant. It's been vacant for 3 years. The owner lives in New York. He tries to come in every 2.5 months, and you remember, right? What was his name? Joe. He was trying to come in and renovate the place to sell it. So now this guy, a seller, was in an extremely motivated situation because now he's carrying 2 mortgages, right? He lives out of town. The house is in distress. His wife's probably yelling at him every night about it. Do something. Miguel comes in. I was like, "Hey, can you please give me his information?" They're like, "Okay." They give me his information. This is my first time ever doing this, guy. So I was like, "Okay, here we go," right? I love how we're all getting used to the rumbling now. Anyways, I call him, and this is a vital shift here now because I have to share this. I didn't create a business yet. So say when you're ready. Found a deal, good. I was getting coffee near this area, which is this area. I call this is my place. I love investing here. But I met Jim at a coffee shop. Jim and I went to the same church. Somebody earlier said, "How'd you meet Jim?" You meet Jim, just don't steal him. I'm just kidding. But I met Jim. Now, this is a vital thing, because the one thing that was scaring the heck out of me was the construction and the renovation part. When I got married, my father-in-law was over helping us hang stuff. And he's like, "Miguel, where's your hammer?" I didn't even know to hammer. So this is, in my mid-20s.
He still does.
Yeah, I still don't, whatever. So I run into Jim. At a coffee shop there on whatever, it's 32nd or 38th. And I started talking, I was like, "Hey, I'm really looking to get into real estate. I've never done a deal before. Would you be interested in working with me?" I'm like, "I'll pay you." It's like, whatever. The cool thing about this is Jim kind of became a mentor, definitely, and kind of took me under his wing. But for me, it was an affirmation that it's like, okay, now it's on. Now it's like, hey, I may not have the whole funding thing figured out, but I found somebody that I can trust and will, has been doing construction for the whole time. And then now when I first saw that house what was it, 3919 Auburn, which is that vacant house. We walked through it. I ended up setting an appointment with the gentleman. Call him. Don't be afraid to call people, especially sellers. So there was no agent involved at this time.
So is my owner.
It wasn't even on the market. Yeah.
Oh.
Good question. Yeah, so this is an off-market deal. And this is a key point here. This house that we're in right now was an off-market deal. Could you imagine the investors that would have paid for this house, essentially? Because it's slim pickings right now. And people will easily overpay who have deep pockets. So us, as investors, we need to buy these properties. We'll get to the formula in a little bit, but at least 70% below market value. We'll get there. This is important. This was an off-market deal. Thanks, Mayor, for bringing that up. Now, we walked through it. The property was assessed at $85K, so it was worth at least $85K. It was a 3-bed, 1-bath, Cape Cod, kind of like you're staying at home. No garage, had a cool fenced-in yard. 2 weeks went by, and I kind of just left it sitting there. And finally, I'm like, okay. Again, remember, taking initiative and action. I offered him $50K for the house. Jim was like, "You're crazy." People are like, "Man, he'll never accept that."
What's the 85? Is that?
85K, I'm sorry, is the assessed value.
Okay.
You go on county records.
Sorry, I was speaking.
No, this is good. Sorry, I apologize. My mind just kind of goes. 85K assessed value. So that's for the property and the land.
Did you have that done, or did you just like go to Erie County?
You just go to Erie County.
Yeah, ErieCounty.gov. You know, the Zestimate.
Okay.
We'll say it's like, what are they gonna say, 105? Which is good when you go to resell the house if it's up there, because then people, you know. Anyways, so I was like, I had no idea about my formula. Hey, come on in, brother. All right. Big scary dog. Guys, this is Brian. Brian works at MBS, Modern Builder Supply. He's obviously gonna have his hands full here with us with some windows. How many? 30 windows? 30 some windows here?
39.
Brian, grab some coffee, water, have a seat, man. There's chairs back there if you need one.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, so 39, okay, so here we are. 50K, guys, I had no idea what my renovation budget was gonna be. Remember, my thing was like, hey, I could just paint this thing up and rent it out. But fixed up, but then I started doing a little more research. We're gonna talk about this today. You should know what this is, you should write this down. ARV is after repair value, yep. There's a lot of agents that don't even know what ARV means. When we start to talk about building your team, if your agent doesn't know what ARV is, please find a new agent. Brandon is a good one here. Brandon Penn right there, raise your hand, Brandon. He's the kind of guy that you want to have on your team, because he's also a real estate investor himself, a licensed agent. That you gotta have people who know what you're talking about. So the after repair value of this thing was 120K. So I was like, holy crap, I have $70,000 worth of equity in this house? I'm like, why don't I just put 15K into it and make it happen? So I made the offer of 50K. He came back at like 63. I ended up moving it up to like 53,000. So basically paying for his closing costs. Boom, got it under contract. I was like, great, how am I gonna pay for this thing? So remember, all that money that I saved, and one of the things about why real estate is great is you can bring partners in. And essentially a financial partner, and that was my brother. And we quickly found out that him and I don't work well together. But it was cool because we did business. We ended up selling that house for 115K. This is the highest grossest flip that we ended up doing. Jim obviously did a lot of the renovations there, put a new kitchen in. We fixed the bathroom up, did some paints, refinished the floors. It was a cosmetic flip, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But guys, buying a house for 53K and then selling it for 120K, being into it for around 70, I was sold. I was like, okay, this is gonna be my new vehicle to create an active income, to reinvest back into what will be essentially the financial foundation for real estate. Questions on the first deal? I'm sure I missed a ton of things.
Did you buy it in cash?
Bought it in cash.
Okay. How-
Yeah, so essentially, my brother helped fund the deal, and then I did the renovation budget, but also I spent a ton of time. It was really cool. These first, 4 or 5 deals that we did, I was really involved in the construction aspect because I felt like I needed to get my hands dirty and learn. And that's where Jim's mentorship, guidance, patience with me really helps. So that now when I see work, I know what's good quality work. When I'm talking to a contractor, they're not going to take advantage of me because I actually know what they're talking about. You ever step into a doctor's office and they're saying all these fancy words? It's the same thing. We got to kind of be on the same playing field. So that way, A, they take you serious, and B, you don't freaking go bankrupt during your renovation budget. Because we had red flags that happened in some of our jobs with contractors, which I'll touch on here shortly.
So how long did that take?
This one, this was interesting. This one was actually interesting. So we closed on that April of 2018. This is my first deal. Okay, April 2018. Jim, what was our? I don't know if you remember the renovation.
I think
60 days?
End of June.
Yeah, call it 90 days. My father passed away during this time, so it was like, it kind of extended the thing a little bit. Rest in peace, Pops, his birthday was the other day. So 90 days to essentially from the moment that I bought it, renovated it, and then I ended up having to go to Mexico to take his ashes. It was crazy. I was on the beach with my cocktail, putting it up on Zillow because I wanted to do a for sale by owner, which I don't do these anymore because you find good agents, they just do it for you. But for sale by owner, I put it on Zillow. I wasn't coming back until mid-July. I hosted my first open house. Never have done an open house before. Sold under 48 hours. So now, I mean, a year ago, like we have one on the market right now that we finished. Beautiful house. It's a smaller house, but it's a gorgeous house. And last year, this time, we had another property on the market, and I was freaking out. But now I'm at the point where it's like, hey, you put out a product that's so great, you're gonna attract the right buyer. So instead of like thirsting for maybe not a qualified buyer, or a qualifier is gonna be a pain in the ass, excuse my language, and they want like 5 or 6% seller's assist, I'm okay waiting a little bit, especially with what we're dealing with out here.
Because it sold so quickly, did you like feel like, oh, I listed it too low, or were you like, oh, good, I'm glad it's off?
You know, there was a lot of mistakes, there was a lot of learning here, but because what I ended up doing is what's called controlling the buyer. So we had it under contract for like 119, right? And then he did his inspection. Wait till you meet inspectors. Oh, the furnace doesn't work, and blah, 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 the windows this, all, you know, so many red flags. Every time you go to list a house and you have an inspector come in and you feel like your house is perfect, just know that there's gonna be at least 2 pages full of things that aren't right. So out of those things, then the buyer has then some leverage to be like, hey, I want X, Y, and Z fixed. Or you can just kind of zip them up and give them some money. So that's what I ended up doing. So I gave them $3K at closing. So Brandy, to answer your question, I was like, I'm taking it and running it. Because it was also a cash deal. It was a cash offer. So we didn't have the banks have to worry 60 days or whatever the case was going to be to worry about closing with the banks. This was my first deal. I was like the deal from heaven. I'm like, oh my God, real estate is so great. Nothing ever goes wrong. Which obviously on my second and third deal, I was like, holy smokes, now I'm in. But this was great though. But then what that did, guys, that kind of got the ball rolling. I didn't know to do with my brother. The thing I remember, I was talking about partnerships and stuff. I love my brother to death. That'll never change. However, you gotta again set those guidelines because I was doing a lot of the work. I was finding the deals. I was actually doing a lot of the renovations, and then I was selling the property. And then the split situation, just not to get too personal into it, just wasn't making sense. So I'm like, hey, yo, I'm gonna start my own entity. We can still do deals. Because I'll talk about that now. How I'm not looking at just one deal. Look, I'm not looking at one deal to kind of make or break my situation now. I look at it as now like I'm hoping to scale this thing if we're allowed. We'll talk about that in a second. But questions on the first deal? How you guys doing? Good. Mm-hmm. Good on time. Jim, we good on time? Yes. Okay. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Now I have some topics that I wanted to touch on. First one is going to be our flip formula. So now we can deep dive a little bit into some rules, guidelines, kind of quantified things that make a flip happen. Because I'm not recreating anything. And I always say that. I'm not recreating anything. I'm staying within the guidelines of what a flip formula should look like. I have a spreadsheet here that helps me with all that stuff. But to start, let's start with our flip formula, if we're ready now. You can find all this stuff online, but a lot of the times it's like, okay, where do you find it? How do you find it? They're gonna charge you like, hey, join my coaching program. I'll be your, hey, that's cool. Again, that's a source of income for that individual. Again, I didn't do it that way, so my hope today is to kind of expedite that process for you guys, because it took me 2 years to eventually get educated. I don't have it all figured out, but if I stay within these guidelines, I'm gonna make some money, Contractors are gonna get paid, city gets paid, everybody's gonna get paid. Let's see here. So remember, ARV, what does that stand for again?
After repair value?
Somebody other than Susie?
After
I've always wanted to say that.
I was like,
You know, there's always like that one really, really smart kid in school. I was like, dude, shut up. No, I'm just kidding, Susie, that's not you. I was just saying. Okay, after repair value. That's your ARV. This is above significantly, if you do a good job on your renovation, should be significantly above the assessed value of what like the market value of the property is. And you figure that out by, you know, having your agent do a comp analysis. In this area, I kind of know this area now where I know maybe a 4-bed, this one, you know, could be anywhere between 150 to 140. 150 is going to be like the absolute ceiling. Like that's tops. And that's one thing you have to know going into these things. It's like, okay, if the house is only going to be worth X, Y, and Z, do I need to add this bathroom in the basement? For an extra $10,000, if you're going to make the same amount of money, don't do the bathroom. We ran into that at our property that we just did. We were going to finish the basement. It would have been like an extra $3,500 in renovation costs with labor, and I was at the absolute max of what it's worth. So I was like, no, not going to do it. We could always come down on our asking price. You can't ever go up. So formula. Does everybody have an idea of? Has anybody ever heard of the 70% rule? I'm gonna get this right this time, because last time I spoke at your event, I chopped this up. All right, and then, okay, so this is, where's my little cheat sheet here? Okay. This is the foundation. This is the foundation. You start here, and then you work backwards. Start here, and then work backwards.
So are you basing that off of looking at the neighborhood and saying, okay, this is what, like, this is the highest priced sale house in this area, and that's my goal?
Right, okay, so yes, for instance, this house right here, like you said, oh, look at this house on the street. Give it to me, that's the one I buy. Now, you start looking around, you know, if your agent sends you MLS report, Zillow at this point is pretty good to keep up with all that stuff. Actually, a lot of the times faster than some agents. But anyways, you start to figure out, and then you compare your property to that property, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna have a nicer kitchen. My bathrooms are gonna be nicer. I'm gonna have fresh paint, new floors, new windows, you name it. So you base that off a number, but then you can go higher off of that. But stay realistic. You know, you're not gonna ask $40,000 more than a house that's nice. I'm gonna run into some issues here. Maybe I don't want to say issues, but some interesting things, because these houses across the street, for instance, fixed up. Maybe I think one went for like 112.
Yeah.
Okay, but they're significantly smaller and their layouts kind of suck. This one is a 4-bed. It'll be a 2-bath. It's gonna be open. Again, it's gonna be super beautiful. So we'll be able to kind of set the bar high. And just to give you an example, we did a 3-bed, 1-bath garden app over here. Again, I was gonna do a bathroom there in the basement, but then I realized it's like, hey, the max value for this house that I want to sell it for is $139,900. There was no ranches. It was a ranch, single family, a 3-bed, 1-bath. There were no ranches that were anywhere near this price, but I knew what we did to this house: siding, windows,
Like
everything.
the square footage of that house?
It was like 1,100.
Okay.
Yeah, 1,100 square feet.
So I would look at that and think you're too high. for
Correct.
that.
Right. For sure, absolutely. And again, that's one of the, and that's a formula. You know, that's kind of one of those things. It's like, okay, you can kind of stretch a little bit. So I was willing to stretch.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna set the appraisal high for this area. So this property actually was great because I got it under contract for full asking price, no agent, no inspection, $139,900. She had a conventional loan, and then the appraisal came.
Right.
Okay, appraisers, yeah, love them.
Yeah. So that-
Came back at 140.
No.
Yeah, crazy. So it was just, you know, but and, you know, I had fellow investors and even agents be like, dude, you just set the comp high for us.
Yeah.
Thank you. So that was 139.9, not even a half mile from here.
Yeah.
This one is gonna be a 4.2. I better get at least 150 for it. But I know that I could at least get this. Okay, then you're gonna raise the argument, well, Miguel, it's a ranch, it's a single family, so it's like, okay, like, I'd much rather live in this house than the ranch that we had. But yeah, so that's, so now it's like, okay, I'm basing my comp high
Yeah.
for my,
Like the one in my neighborhood that went really high.
yeah, so use that to your advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah, use that to your advantage. And you know, the cool thing about that, you know, you're paying the taxes here, you're increasing the value of the neighbors. It's a beautiful thing. Any other questions on that?
Now that you said taxes, I do have a question.
Okay.
So,
Where? Not about capital gains at this moment.
just about, like the taxes. So when you pay $50,000 for the house, are you taking that? step?
Yes,
So you are. So how long
absolutely.
does that take
Plus the renovation.
for that? Like, you have to get that done before your renovation's done, obviously, right?
Yeah, if you could do it within the year, if that's what you're asking.
It's like city and county school taxes, or
Yeah.
Oh, you're
Well,
okay. You're
I'm
actually talking
wondering,
about the.
Are you saying, are you lowering the assessed value of that house? Are you going through that step to get that assessed value lower, so the tax you're paying is lower? And then, is that helping out your buyer? Because. now
No,
they
don't,
at
don't,
least
yeah,
have-
don't, yeah. My,
You're not doing
there's a couple things I don't really like to tell people don't do, but if there's one thing you don't want to do, don't do that.
Don't worry.
Yeah, don't do that. Unless you're holding the property, right? If you're keeping the property and you bought it significantly less than what the appraised value is, then you would hire your attorney to do an appeal.
So if you're gonna rent it,
Yeah, but if you're gonna keep it, you want it.
but if you're gonna flip it,
Yeah,
don't do it.
yeah, the higher. Great question. Okay, so ARV, we know what that is. That's after repair value. That's where you start. So number one, when you're looking at a property, we'll talk about deals and how you find them a little bit. Again, there's so many pieces. First step is to schedule. I'll write this down. This is again, everybody has their way, but this is how I do it. Schedule your appointment. That could be directly with the seller. That could be through your listing agent, or I'm sorry, through your agent that's helping you. Remember, when you're buying a house, it doesn't cost you any money to have an agent. How many people knew
Can you
that?
say that again? When you're buying a house?
When you're buying a house, it doesn't cost you anything as the buyer to have an agent. It costs the seller money, which we'll talk about that as well. Because before I used to be like, oh, I want to sell this house by myself. I don't want to give it 3%. And honestly, you're just slowing your growth process at that point. Okay. And what you do at this time during your walkthrough. So for instance, with this one, this was an off-market deal. Another cool thing why I do social media, if you guys heard me say, it's building that reputation. So my biggest lead source for finding these properties is my reputation and referrals, word of mouth. So a listing agent who's pretty well known, does a lot of work, sent me a private message on Facebook, told me about this house. Hey, needs a little bit of work, went to high school with this guy, great family, told him who you were, because now people know that you can actually close on deals, you fix them up, you do good work, and you sell them, right? As opposed to just like having stories of doing work. So that worked into my favor. So now I was able to schedule an appointment with the seller before any other investors could come and raise the value of this property. All right, so that's huge. That's huge. That's very vital. Second one is this is where you start to figure out your budget. This is your renovation budget. And I know this is going to be a can of worms here. I don't want to spend too much time here. Okay, so this property, for instance, when I walk through it, obviously the exterior needs a ton of work. Doesn't look like we're going to be painting anytime soon, unfortunately, out there. But the windows and the roof are going to need to be replaced. Like, those are big ticket items. Okay, so immediately I was like, okay, boom, boom. You start to kind of put these blocks together. I work, like when it's something like that, I start to work in like $5,000 increments. So windows, roof, all that good stuff, and then siding. I come in here and I start to walk the property And while I'm doing this, and this has taken a long time to do, it's taken me 2 years to finally do this. One second, Sue, hold on, one second, Sue. When you're doing this is, you have to ask the seller questions. I feel like there's a huge psychological thing going on here because you don't want to just come in here and there's sentimental value attached to this house from a seller's perspective if you have a heart, right? You want to acknowledge that. I'm asking questions. Hey, why do you guys want to sell? You know, the mom passed away here. This was her house. At that point, it's something that they don't want to do. They just want to dump it off, right? They want to dump it off. They're going to tell you that, but you don't want to come in and be like, hey, okay, hey, I'll give you $70,000 for this house right now. No, that's not how it works. And we already have this stigma that as flippers or just investors, we're going to lowball sellers. So if you kind of put yourself in their position, you start to kind of just be a little bit more creative with how you A, ask questions, and B, ultimately figure out how much, because you're seeing all the things that need fixed. I see that this wall right here needs to come down so that this kitchen opens up because there's no room for a refrigerator, right? That laundry room back there, you guys will have a chance to walk through the property if you haven't yet. There's only one bedroom. How many of you guys, when you're hosting people at your house, people need to use the restroom, right? It's nice, so we're gonna take that out, we're gonna add a half bath. And all our plumbing is there already. We'll get our master plumber because you're in Erie, you need a master plumber, we'll talk about that. There's so many things we're gonna talk about. All right, and then upstairs, you start to figure out the cosmetic upgrades, the paint, the flooring, right? Once we take this carpet off, is it something that we're gonna refinish? Are we gonna lay our LVP? You start to kind of get into the system. Again, you don't know all this stuff at first, but you kind of have to get through making the mistakes essentially to start doing that. But you're asking questions, you figure out your budget, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna need whatever, 30K. This is just an example. That's $30,000 that you're gonna invest into this property to get your ARV. And then number 3, you make an offer. Now, you can make the offer right then and there, face to face. I've done that. I've done that, especially when, like say for instance, if it's listed, you kind of want to move a little bit faster. You actually want to bring a contract agreement with you. It's like, hey, this is my offer. It's a cash offer, as is, no inspections. I have a contract right here. And you sign it out. I have copies of, you want to have the right paperwork. I have copies of all that stuff. I can email you that stuff. I paid for it, but I'd be more than happy to share that with you. But you want to make an offer. If you're not going to make an offer right then and there, like for instance, after I met with the seller of this house, I did not make an offer right then and there because of the rapport that I built. And because of the leverage that I had of knowing that nobody else was going to start to show it at least 2 weeks from when I walked through it. So I had a little bit of time to work with so that I could creatively write my offer down without taking advantage of this gentleman's like sympathetic stuff of like, man, he just lowballed the hell out of me on my childhood home.
When you say write it down, do you mean you wrote it or you had a lawyer or somebody that wrote it up?
I read it down. Yeah. So as a real estate investor, so REI is a real estate investor, you're gonna know that nobody cares more about your business than you. Okay? So like on a Sunday, maybe if you have an awesome agent, they're gonna boom, write up the deal, do that stuff. But it's like, no, if you already have the paperwork in place, you could, well, I like to just send my offer via text, honestly. Or actually, in this case, it was an email because he was actually a lawyer. And I actually wrote down, I have a copy here of the email that I wrote. It was like, it was like 2 pages long, which was really cool because it was actually speaking to the psychology of a lawyer. They just sit there and they read stuff. He's like, and then at the end of it, it was my offer. Okay, so 1 second, Cindy. I know. I'm sorry. Okay, so within 24 to 48 hours after you make your offer, follow up. And depending on the rapport you build, that could be a call, that could be an email, that could be a text message. Got to follow up. And then you negotiate. 9 times out of 10 they're going to counter your offer, and that's part of the game, and that's totally okay. Okay, and then 4, get it under contract. Because when you have your own contract, we'll talk about your team. After you get it under contract, send it to your lawyer. Send it to your lawyer. And now you're done. And now it's an escrow. Okay, so let me see here. Okay, and then, okay, so now, do we have all this?
Yep.
Okay. Number 4.
Can I ask a quick practical question?
Yes.
How did you find a lawyer? Like, did you just like word of mouth, like so and so used him?
Yeah. There's referrals. I've had and when I worked at IROC, I knew a bunch of
Okay.
cool lawyers and stuff. So trust me, there's some really good ones out here. But then there's also some that we'll just leave it at that. Okay. Let me see. Okay, so what did I say? Get it under contract, right?
Yeah.
Was that 4? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now 5, send to attorney. Pennsylvania requires that you have an attorney present at closings. So you're like in Florida or something, you can go through like a closing company. You still can go through a closing company here. That's cool. It might be a little bit more affordable because they have like attorneys that they sub out. So you can do a closing company, whatever the case may be, and totally preference. I like my attorney because I have a relationship with him and it's an ongoing thing. And he gives me a break on my deals. Or I have to always remind his paralegal, be like, hey, can you take care of this fee a little bit? Because they just reprint these documents out, man. It's like, really? You're going to charge me $500 to print paper, but that's okay. That's a different story. All right, so now we have to fund it. Okay. Now, a dozen deals in, 2 years in, I have this set. Whether it's my own cash, whether it's the relationships that I have with the banks, whether it's a line of credit that I'm leveraging through one of the properties that I already own, whether it's a private money lender that I want to work with, or a family member that's like, hey, I've got money, take it, bring it. Which is the best kind of money because that's the most affordable money. But again, I didn't know what I didn't know, so now it's like, okay, fund it. Obviously, you have it under contract as cash, so it's going to have to be a cash deal. And people love that, especially when you're selling a house like in this thing where it's distressed. They want to get out of it. You can close it within 2 weeks. Here's the cool thing about how, he ended up accepting my offer. And okay, so now let's do my formula. So how did I do my formula when I walked in? I knew that my ARV, I want it to be 150,000, right? Yes, no?
Mhm.
Okay.
Right.
Just making sure you guys are right.
Can I ask my question?
Yes, you may.
Before you put the next number out,
Shoot.
when you got the message from this realtor that said, hey, you might be interested in this, did you know when you pulled up here, like, what this person was thinking? Like, what were they thinking they were gonna try to get out of this house? Did that person say?
Oh, that's always thrown
Hey.
through the mind.
So, did my person that sent you the message be like, hey, this guy, he just wants, he has this house, and
Right.
probably thinking like 80,000 or whatever, or 100,000, like, did you know that?
Yes.
Before you started my, like, okay,
I knew
5,000
the
for
one
roof,
number that I
5,000
got
for
out of the seller was 90,000.
Okay.
Because that's what he was basing it off the assessed value. You look this up right now, Erie County
Okay.
Records, 2804 Charlotte, 90K, 93.
Okay.
Okay. He's like, hey, but you're talking, you're asking, you're not taking advantage, you're digging. I carry a notebook and I write things down. They know the things that are wrong with the place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 90K, it's like, oh my gosh, yes, I would love to wake up, get 90K, but realistically, I don't know, maybe I'll take 75, maybe I'll take 60K. I don't know. And I don't know the conversations that he had with the agent. That's really none of my business.
Okay.
My business is to provide value for this individual and get them out by buying their house. I'm trying to find, can somebody pull up their calculator? I just want to make sure I know Jim could do this in his head. He used to be a math teacher. There it is. Good. Okay, scientific calculator. Whatever. All right.
What do you want?
So 150,000 times. This is your formula, so please write this down if you don't know this. The 70% rule. Everybody should know this. If you don't know this, you're not writing it down, I don't know what else to tell you. Times 0.70%. What is that?
105.
105.
Is that
My
all-
dog doing up there. Nesta!
Is that all expenses, everything?
That's essentially where you're in at the deal. With, right? So now, so just you'll see it. So remember $30,000 was our renovation budget. Can I get a number on that? Sure, I can do it, but 75K. Wait, okay, so this is renovation budget.
That's right.
150K is your ARV, right? Guys, $75,000 is your max offer. Can we do 150,000 minus 105? Should probably know what that is. 45K. Hey, look, this is your profit. Yay! That's what the TV shows will tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, there's obviously holding costs, there's taxes and insurance, your attorney's gonna want that fee, your contractor's gonna need, whatever. So not all of this is profit, but guys, this is good margin of safety right here.
Where'd that 35 or that 30 come from for
30
renovation?
Yeah, 30 is your renovation budget.
Is that always your renovate? Like
No, that's actually a pretty high budget
Right.
for a renovation.
I was gonna say.
That's actually a really high budget. But you gotta understand everything that's going into this place. We're gonna talk more about deals and as far as renovation. Jim's gonna talk today about contracting, but there's lipstick rehabs where it could be anywhere between 5 to 7K. There's middle of the road that could be 10 to 20, and then 30 and above, it's a bigger project. And remember back to working in the business rather than on the business. I know that I'll probably make less per house now, but remember, I have my freedom time. We have people who are from the baby boomer generation who are super amazing at doing renovations. I didn't grow up as a contractor, nor do I want to be a contractor. I've painted, I've spent my time doing that, but slowly but surely I started to realize it's okay, this isn't fulfilling for me, the painting. So that was a huge red flag. It wasn't so much I'm not getting paid for this. It was just dude, I don't enjoy this anymore. So therefore, delegate it out. Remember, what's the best employee?
Money.
All right, so this is potentially your profit for this property. Now, guys, what do you think I purchased this property for?
60.
If 75K is my max offer. So if you want this spreadsheet right here, I know I didn't bring my slideshow. You guys can come up here and see this. If I wanted to make 45K, for instance, right here it says, okay, ARV 150. The profit that I want to make is 45,000. My rehab budget plus all the other costs. Right here in the green it says max offer. With everything else figured in here, all the costs, my max offer should have been 55,000, not 75, because you see all the hidden fees that you don't see. So this is realistic. I get my block idea so I can make an offer, and then when I come back to my office, I sit down and I really type in these figures to narrow it down. When you're doing your walkthrough, that's just really quick. So really quick, before we answer any questions, you guys want to guess how much I paid for this?
62.
And we just
55.
Huh?
55.
55?
48.
48?
60. I'm guessing. Yeah.
60? How about one more?
32.
Damn. I wish.
Oh.
I wish. Guys, 45,000.
Wow.
This house was purchased and closed on for 45,000.
I was closest without going over.
Yeah, you were. Okay, so guys, all right, so check this out. This 70% rule. So for instance, I'm getting this property for 48% below market value. And if my ARV after repair value is 150 and I bought it for 45, how much is that in equity? 105. Okay, potentially, right?
Did they like because it was a cash deal, or were they really trying to get out, or did they?
Well, again, I think there's a lot of factors. There's a lot of factors. Yes, obviously they wanted to dump it off and get it out. But I think because I took the time, and obviously the reputation is there. I took the time to spell it out. Again, I have a sample of that if you guys want to read it. To speak to the psyche of the lawyer, but to also know where I'm coming from. Hey, if I want to sell it at this, I'm gonna need to put X amount in. You know, like I was very clear so that I wasn't just like, hey, here's my offer, 45,000, get back to me in 24 hours.
Right.
You're like, that's kind of jerkish, right?
Did you break down what you were going to be doing to it? Like in the email, did you be like, hey, we're going to be doing this,
I did.
this, and this,
I
this?
did.
And, yeah.
I did. Yeah, it took me an hour to write it. Because I saw the value in this house. I was like, dude, I need to get this house. Even if we were to come up to 60K, you can still do something.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I don't want to go crazy here. And essentially now, another cool thing about the reputation blasting it, this house is technically, it's not under contract, but it technically is already sold with an end buyer. Because they've seen the work that we do. So when it's done, it's just like, it's just there, moving on. But what I'm gonna do, again, back to that burn method, I'm gonna refinance it. I'll put them in here as a rent to own. And whether or not they're gonna fulfill their option, that's ultimately on them. It's funny now, it's funny in retrospect how, or in hindsight, whatever you say, ESL is my first language, so. Anyway, before I couldn't, the banks would never even look at me. And now essentially my wife and I are acting as the bank for somebody to buy their freaking forever home.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, don't believe what society's gonna tell you for your ambitions. Goals.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
Just make sure that the formula written down. Okay, so your profit equals your ARV minus your offer and your renovation added.
Yeah, here, I'll write it down again. So 150,000 is your ARV. That's after repair value. That's what you want to sell it for. If you sell it for 140, don't worry about that. As long as your margin of safety is okay. Times 0.70%, right, is going to get you down to 105
Minus your renovation.
minus your renovation.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to operate under this thing, it's a little tighter. You gotta be very careful.
Because then you're gonna have like closing.
Yeah, you got closing costs.
And
That whatever that rumbling is. I don't know what the hell that thing is. So 75K. So now I have an additional whatever 30K. There's my budget.
Mhm. So now when you do the budget, like the renovation budget, now you pay for that just like out of pocket, out of like your bank.
Well, we're gonna get there.
Okay.
Yep. Boom, this is good. So your minds are rolling.
You got 20 minutes to get there.
Okay.
Sorry.
Oh yeah.
Last questions.
Well, hold on. When's our break? 11, did I say?
10:30.
10:30. Yeah, we'll do Q&A. And we'll just keep going if you guys want to keep going.
I'm gonna take my break now, okay?
Yeah, go for it. Okay,
You don't
so
need to wait.
let's go. All right, now we're gonna go into. Trust me, we're gonna get into deals and stuff, but I think this is an essential thing. If you want to do this successfully, build your team. And we'll start with our contractors. Jim always says, he's got the vision and how to make it happen, right? Kind of thing. This wall, for instance, we're gonna go over the scope of work of this project, but like this wall is gonna be going down. You know, it's like, oh, is that weight bearing? I don't know. Hire the person who knows. But at the same time, kind of have an idea of what's going on again, so you don't take advantage of. But contractors, guys, we can't do what it is that we want to do, especially fixing, renovating, properties, so that you can get that premium price. You need contractors, and you need reliable contractors, and you need contractors that are trustworthy, and you need contractors who aren't going to screw you. The list goes on. But these guys essentially make this happen. make this happen. You know, as the investor, you know, your responsibility is to create the opportunity to do this, to create the operation. Whether or not you want to get involved, and if like you're handy, whatever it is, and it makes you happy, get involved. I'm not telling you not to do that. I just know that it's like, hey, that's not my gifting, man. And I'm very clear about that stuff. Okay, 2, realtors. We'll go more into contractors in a second and how I like to do it. Realtors, agents, listing, buying. I have more than one agent that I work with. Like I have one guy that I do most of my listing with. I have one guy that will sell my houses for me. Because when I first started as a for sale by owner, I was like kind of being greedy, right? Thinking small of like, hey, I want to get as much as I possibly can in this deal. But then if like an agent would bring me a qualified buyer, I'm obligated to give them 3% anyways, right? So you're obligated to give 3%. I mean, that is what it is. So if you can find an agent that's willing to work with you and not charge you significantly more, to me, it's a no-brainer to pay a little bit more and be completely out of the sales process now. Because tomorrow there's an open house at our auction property, and I don't have to be there. You know, Sundays, go to church, get lunch, spend time with the kids. I don't know why I put that 3%, but that's buyer agent. And this can fluctuate. Let me see here. We'll get there in a second. I'll tie it all in together. Attorneys. Again, Pennsylvania requires that we have an attorney present representing. The cool thing about what I like to do with my attorneys is when I get a deal under contract, for instance, like this one, he was a lawyer, so obviously he represented the state of this house. But to hook my attorneys up, I have them represent both sides. Again, I'm taking care of the team here. And what that does is, you know, we just sign a conflict of interest, so that way, you know, the what do you call it, the attorney's protected. Inspectors. Just love these guys. Okay? Buy them coffee. Buy them coffee, send them cards, whatever the case may be. You need these people on your team. There's so many of them, and every single one of them is different. Every time we get an inspection report from multiple sources, you always see stuff that one caught and the other one didn't. And it's just, I don't want to say it's luck of the draw, but sometimes it is. So I guess just going through it with the right mentality there.
Do you pick your inspectors, or you just?
No. Essentially, for instance, if somebody's going with the bank, yes, the buyer and the buyer's agent choose, they'll find somebody. And they typically charge, what I might actually start doing, depending on my renovation budget, I might actually get and this is actually kind of like something like big time flippers are doing, is they'll hire an inspector before they list it. Yeah, so then that way you already have an inspection report. It's like, hey, we're not hiding anything, we didn't cut any corners here, let me save you $500, here's your inspection report. At that point, what that's doing, that's building trust. Which might actually be better now that I'm thinking about it, because, okay, it's an extra cost for me, but I know that I have a relationship with this individual. At the same time, they're not going to put their name, their reputation on the line and be like, hey, Miguel, that furnace is old, but I told you it's not going to. Like, no, like, tell me what's wrong. You know? Integrity is obviously like the key thing here. Accountants. I'm not going to deep dive into this too much, but hire a good accountant, especially one that has a good idea of real estate. They can help you. They can help you save a lot of money. Look forward to paying your accountant, because they save you money from paying the government, right? Remember, take advantage of all the real estate leverages and tax advantages that we have. Banks, lenders, bank tellers, because sometimes when you get a check from, you have a huge check from a flip, and you want to be able to pay some stuff, or you want to pay yourself, obviously, and you want that money ASAP. They won't need it verified because they believe you. You know what I'm saying? It's funny, if you walk in, like for instance, we went to Erie Bank the other day and I wanted to deposit a check, and it was a new girl working there at the bank that I got to. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna need to get this verified. I'm just like, oh my gosh, because Denise wasn't there. To expedite the process for me. Private lenders. You have a huge check from a flip, and you want to be able to pay some stuff, or you want to pay yourself, obviously. They won't need it verified because they believe you. You know what I'm saying? It's funny, if you walk in, like for instance, we went to Erie Bank the other day and I wanted to deposit a check, and it was a new girl working there at the bank that I got to. She's like, yeah, I'm gonna need to get this verified. I'm just like, oh my gosh, because Denise wasn't there. Denise wasn't there to expedite the process for me. don't know what you don't know. When I first started my deal, I would have loved to have met a private lender, whether it was somebody who does like, who does it hard money wise, private money wise, family who's got like little lines of credit that they're willing to use. Like, take advantage of it, and it's just a cool way to pay. Like, for instance, like my mom's one of my my private lenders. She's got like a little line of credit. I keep it for her, and I pay her however much I want, she wants at a time. Instead of blowing the money, it's like, Mom, let's just put it into real estate. Take advantage of all the lines of credits that you can use there, because obviously you need money to play in this business. Consultants. So this is something that I'm looking to incorporate as, if I'm gonna be honest with you, another source of income. And honestly, something that I would be offering to you guys at the end of this. This is free, but if it's like, hey, you wanna get into this thing, and you're absolutely like freak out how you're gonna do it, figure out a small percentage to help me come in and help you run your project for you. It's not gonna cost, because it's like, hey, when you have a renovation budget, you're always gonna be over by at least $5,000. Think of this as like your inspector fee or something. It's just really easy to help you with that process, because we've done this. We have almost a system down. Well, we do have a system. And mentors, right? People that you can call, text, email. I've slowly attracted people, Jim being one of them, Pat, one of them back there, who, we could do something together in the future. But any questions on building your team? I don't think I'm missing somebody.
I do.
Yes, sir.
Suppliers.
Oh, sorry.
It's right, Miguel.
Hey guys, well honestly, hey, you know what? This is new. This is new because the first few clips that we did were mainly cosmetic stuff. But now we're doing windows. We've done some siding. We're doing some roofs. I'm gonna tell you a quick story about Brian back there. MBS, Modern Builder Supply. I won't go anywhere else now. So, for instance, Pat, remember those glass block windows that we ordered? All right, Pat and I ordered glass block windows. To me, I was in the middle of freaking doing something, and he's like, hey, these are the window dimensions, blah, blah, blah. And I was just thinking, because every time we put windows in the basement, they're like those nice glass block windows, right? So I call MBS, Brian answered, hey, I need this in glass block. He even said, you sure you need them that big? I was like, yep, that's what my contractor said, boom. I deliver them, I bring them to the property. They were heavy as HE double hockey sticks, remember, Jim? They were heavy as hell, so we put them down there. Pat comes in, he's like, dude, why'd you get glass block? I'm like, that's what you told me. He's like, no, they're supposed to be double hung. I'm like, okay. I call MBS. It's like, hey, just made a mistake. I'm taking full ownership for this mistake. It's nothing on you guys. It was a miscommunication between myself and my contractor. I'm owning up to this mistake. However, I knew I was gonna eat the cost. And glass block, like, they're huge. Yeah. They're huge. I was like, hey, I'm willing to take a loss here. I'm like, would you be willing to help me get some more windows? Brian's like, yeah, he writes up the quote. What are the measurements for this? And I was like, hey, we might put a bathroom in the basement. Can that be frosted, etc. He's like, yeah, you're looking at about $100 and some bucks a window. I was like, no, Brian, I was looking to see if you guys can comp me these windows. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, dude, I have a job that's gonna be how many windows? 39 windows, hence is why Brian's here. I was like, will you help me out here and I won't take my business anywhere else? Calls me back like in an hour. He's like, yeah, we'll give you the windows for free and I'll deliver them. Build your team. People take care of you guys. So that was an investment on their part for me, and that's why he's here. He's gonna get a good, hopefully, quote here, right? Hopefully we could make that better, but we'll see. No, he's hooking me up. He's doing awesome. Questions on building your team. We're gonna segue into our last thing. But I want to make sure you guys have questions there. You did say MBS, these suppliers. Because before, guys, I love and I still love Lowe's and Home Depot. Lowe's and Home Depot, yeah, big box stores.
Painters?
Contractors?
No, that suppliers.
Oh yeah. Big box stores. Because one of the things in this business is you want to leverage, get some good lines of credit at those places. They have 0% interest for like 6 to 18 months. Sometimes I'll put all of our material on those things, and then when I get the check after we flip it, all that gets paid off. It's a good way to keep your liquid available to pay your people. Okay, big box. Let me see. It's a little more advanced stuff, but You said painters, yeah, we, okay, so create accounts at, PPG and Sherwin Williams. I was a PPG guy for a long time, but Sherwin Williams has been taking me out to lunch and doing all sorts of nice stuff because they want to earn my business.
One thing with Sherwin-Williams, if anybody owns rentals and becomes part of the apartment association, you can get paint cheaper at Sherwin-Williams than what their employees can get it for. So,
Right.
because of the deal they have with the apartment association.
Which is another way of, building that relationship. Sorry, guys.
It's all good.
Pay for this coffee, might as well use it. I was gonna get 3 boxes. I think we're good. All right. Am I missing anybody here on the list? These are people who I communicate with almost on a regular basis. Obviously, your contractors.
For your first flip, did you have this many people, or did you like?
No.
Like, we need a team.
Yeah.
Can't
So
do
it's like
this.
now, because it's like, okay, how can I? Because we've replicated the system now over several flips. Now it's like, okay, how can I scale this? Well, this needs to increase, right? Which we'll go into the bottleneck here in a second. Essentially, this is kind of the one thing where I'm really kind of putting my focus on, so that we could have 2 to 3 going. Because that first deal was a home run. My first deal was a home run, but I've just been hitting stand-up doubles every time,
Right.
and that'll get you in the Hall of Fame, right? Because I'm not looking at deals like, oh my gosh, I need to make so much money on this deal. It's like, no, if the numbers make sense, we'll make a profit, and everybody gets paid, and we're moving on.
Do you recommend renting out your first one, or then are you sitting on too much money? Do you need to sell it to get?
Well,
money
if you
for
want
your
to build
next
more
one?
capital, it depends on what the terms are with the property. I would say maybe keep it, but if you could use money against it, that would be a good thing. Because if it's working and it's renting for you, I would say keep it, because essentially that's the end goal.
Mhm.
Remember, getting into that passive income. Where's that marker at? Okay.
So are you gonna offer a way for us to get in with this and not have to deal with it?
Right. Yeah. So this is a way where I can help you, but it doesn't have to be forever. It could just be on your first deal.
Mhm.
If you love it enough. Or, eventually it's like there's a lot of people, there's like doctors and dentists who I know that would work for this. So like, for instance, like they're like, hey, I've always wanted to do this, but I don't have the time to do it, right? And to me, as like a project manager, for instance, like you're talking maybe 2 to 3 hours a week.
Mhm.
And doctors, they work in the medical field, remember so they have money. And they're gladly to use it. All right, last little piece here. We're gonna go to 10:30 Q&A, but I figured this is obviously the big thing. All right, here is a must. Here are the must. Perfect. 3 bottlenecks. This is by another book of real estate. Hold on, this should be flipping. You cannot have a flipping business without a team and these 3 things. Well, we'll start with one. Ryan Pineda, former professional baseball player, young guy, lives out of Las Vegas. You can follow him on Instagram. Wrote a book, Flip Your Future. And you got good credit words, dude. He just essentially talked about these 3 things, and I kind of just created my own little thing about them. So number 1 is deals, right? So you need to have deals. How you find them? In order to do flips, you got to have properties that you're flipping, right? So obviously, how do you find them? You can hire an agent, right? Via the MLS, that's the multiple listing source. Just know that once that hits that, every other investor is also going to get an email, a text message. Hey, let's go do this. Sheriff sales. I've actually never even done that, because it's like, especially in Erie, PA, everybody and their mother's there, and they'll overpay for properties. Foreclosures, whatever the case may be. Zillow, believe it or not. I like using Zillow, especially stuff that's been sitting for like a long time. Remember that property on Linden, maybe? No, not Linden. It was by 10th Street. I can't think of the name right now, I'll find it. Anyways, there's one on there for like 190 days. I walked through it, I was so close to making an offer on it, and then the roof was caving in.
Potomac, is that the one?
Potomac. Yeah, Potomac. So I was this close to buying this property that sat on the market for so long. It was priced well, and I loved the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to buy it, because of the neighborhood, right? Location, 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 they say in real estate. Anyways, long story short, the rafters in the roof were 2x4s. So it was just like caving in. I'm like, that's gonna be a big problem. And I didn't know it, but I told the listing agent, he didn't care. He's out of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
He wants to dump this thing off. He's like, yeah, it just needs a little bit of work, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hey, you gotta, like, I went over there on a rainy day, and I saw there was water coming through the ceiling. I was like, okay, I know we can patch that up, that's not a big deal. But what was actually causing the leak was the stinking roof. I told him, I'm like, hey, you got a leak, you wanna get this fixed regardless of whether I buy it or not. He sends over, a roofer, and then on his report it gives back, it's like the roof was built wrong. So then at that point, I was like, hey, I'm backing out of this thing. So you gotta ask questions. Do not be afraid to ask questions, because it can save you a lot of heartache. And I'm so grateful that I got out of there. Guys, and one of my favorite is driving. They call it driving for dollars. Wholesalers in the room. Another thing, driving for dollars. So driving around vacant properties. I found one on West Arlington doing this. Beautiful J.S. Wilson area. That was a fun one. Bought it for $73,000. Only put $15K into it. Sold for $140. That's what they call a whole tail. Well, we didn't completely renovate the place. We didn't even do anything in the kitchen. What did we do, Jim? Just refinish the cabinets. Everybody's like, oh, gut the kitchen. You'll get $190,000 for it. I'm like, no.
Right.
Oh, and actually on that one, I ran into what's called the flip rule with an FHA loan, that they don't allow you to sell a property within 90 days of ownership. So that was a good problem to have, but I'm like, man, I did this so quick where we had to actually change our sale date so that it was approved by the bank. That's a good problem to have. Driving for dollars, and then wholesalers. These are guys who have those bandit signs. We buy houses for cash. I love that. Bring us stuff, because we're the ones that are actually going to go to the closing table and sell the house. The one by the airport was bought by a wholesaler. They had it under contract for $55K. I bought it for $64. They made $9,000 doing nothing by just flipping me the contract. And I was happy to pay it. All right, so that's number one, deals. You gotta have them, and one of the things is you gotta buy right. You have to buy right. Don't overpay for your properties. Let somebody with deep pockets and something that they're just looking to do on the side. You gotta buy right. Remember, 70 to 60% below market value. Anything below 60%, you're winning. You're winning. Questions on deals? Number two, bottleneck. Money. You gotta have money, whether it's your own, whether it's the bank's, whether it's your mother-in-law's, whether it's your mother-in-law's house that you're leveraged, whatever. Just get the money. And you do that. If you're having a hard time finding money, create multiple sources of income. Build. So, like I said, this could be your own cash. That's how I started. I felt like I had no other way of doing this stuff. Like I've always kind of gone that route. I think if I had a dad that was a doctor, I probably wouldn't be doing this. I'd probably be like traditional financing. If you've got great credit, you've got a good paying job, and you can afford the 25% down payment, because that's what the bank's going to require down. Now, house hack, 25% down. House hack, for instance, like say if you're single, who's single in here? Okay. You've heard buy a duplex, live on one side, have the other person rent. It's just like it's proven to work. But how you could avoid paying the 25% down, just pay 3.5. with an FHA.
And living there.
Yeah, because it's your primary residence. So now, when you put somebody in there to rent, they essentially pay for your mortgage bill. You just pay for your utilities or whatever the case may be. That's obviously been a proven way to do that, but that's more for a rental. That's not so much for flipping, because the banks are gonna be like, well, what are you using this property for? I'd rather not lie. Just you know, I don't think it's worth it again for one deal to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna live there, and then you flip it, and it's just like, it's just not good. You know, just you reap what you sow. You reap what you sow, man. I just, you know, I don't want to tell you to do that stuff. Obviously, money is private money, so this has been a cool way for me to now essentially try to use less of my own cash. And guys, this country was built on capitalism, right? So OPM, other people's money. I like prayed and prayed for this. And I don't want to say people are just like throwing money at me, but like I have attracted some reliable people who want to invest. And it's great because they're making money on their money without doing zero work. I'm putting the formulas that are in place for all of us to make money. And then seller financing. And this is a little more strategic, but essentially seller financing is, you know, when somebody owns a house outright, they are in a hurry to sell it, and they like the idea of maybe getting a check guaranteed monthly. Same thing, get it under contract, get it to your attorney, they'll create the amortization schedule, make them payments. It's a great way for you to get a house, whether you want to flip it or rent it, with no money down. Did this at Coffee Culture the other day. Got a house that's worth $65,000, had a computer piece of paper, flipped it over, wrote out our terms, we signed it Monday, I gave it to my attorney, we closed last week. Zero money down, they gave me the keys. They gave me the keys at Coffee Culture while we were eating our lunch. And I put in the terms that our first payment would be 60 days after closing, so March 15th. At that point, I had the keys to the property, so we started the renovation immediately. And it's gonna be rented out before my first payment. So I'm zero money out of pocket. And in that first year, I'll get my entire renovation investment back from the cash flow. That's pretty badass. You guys could be like, it's pretty good. I mean, that's what these books teach you, but it's like, okay, how do you do it? So essentially that's how you do that. Again, you're not taking advantage of people, you're just being creative. Okay, money, any questions about money? Good. Third bottleneck, hopefully I don't have stuff down there, this is good stuff. And it's free. Contractors. You gotta be careful because there's a couple of them in here. That was really quiet. Always, remember, you can't do any flipping without deals, money, and contractors. Always get 3 bids. Always get 3 bids. We sub out a lot of the stuff that we do here, whether it's the floor, the windows, the roofing, the plumbing, especially being in the city. You need a master electrician and a master plumber to do stuff. Always get 3 bids. And it doesn't always have to be the most affordable bid. And I have a pretty strict guideline with this. Like, if somebody doesn't get back to me within like 48 hours with like at least some information, I move on. I move on because if they're not that urgent to get me something, then what's gonna make them urgent when they're actually in here working?
So I just on our own home, trying to call someone to come in, I find that, yeah, you, like, what is with, like, you can't get a contractor to even come give you a quote.
Right.
Something like, do you run into that, like, or you have your team now, so that's not really an issue for you anymore?
No, it isn't. I don't wanna say it isn't an issue, but I don't wanna say it is either, but, it takes persistence. You gotta call, and don't just go to like the retail people.
You're like wasting your time.
Yeah.
For people to show
That's
up.
why, that's why it's like, I spend a lot of time on social media to build relationships, to bring us like this together so that we could use the right contractors. You know, it's not to bash contractors, but there are some really bad ones out there, but there's also some really, really good ones.
Yeah.
There's some good ones, and I think, again, and then that's one of my next points is attract. This has changed for me. Attract good people. Not to get too philosophical here, but what you think about, you bring about, right? I've shifted my mindset to just wanting to bring good people around here, as opposed to just wanting to bring somebody who's cheap and affordable, or just somebody who can just get it done on my time frame or whatever. So yes, you're gonna pay more for these individuals, but it's gonna save you time and a headache in the long run. I've learned that, right, Jen? To maybe just pay for the higher bid so that you could avoid that. If garden, even though we set the comp high, there was a lot of fires that I had to put out there. You know, thank God for Jim. That's why I call him the doctor. He not only had to stop with the job that he was doing, but he had to come and fix the work that the contractor had left me with money in his pocket. He left the place a complete disaster. Jim came back, fixed all the doors, fixed the kitchen. This guy freaking put 2x4s on my finished drywall in my kitchen to put the cabinets, to have the cabinets level. So we had to patch that up over fresh paint. Jim and his guys came in, they finished the kitchen, which was something he was supposed to do. They finished the floor, which was something that he was supposed to do. And he fixed all the doors and stuff. So again, attract good people. But I thought that was a good learning experience for me. Because again, the house still made money. Because the margin of safety was good enough. But this little shift right here, guys, has changed, and I'm really kind of getting better at it.
Were you able to recover the money?
Yes.
From the contractor?
No. I was gonna. Hey guys, what's up? Come on in. There's a couple chairs if you guys want to grab one. We're almost gonna take a break here, but guys, that's Jeff and Sarah. Hello. Questions on this? Always get 3 bids. Again, this is where like that consulting thing is going to help. Because not only we're bringing our experience, but we're also going to bring our contractors. Sit back, watch the magic happen, baby. Not every deal could just be one deal. Let me see here. Oh, okay, pay. Yeah, pay the contractor. The contractor's a little bit more things. I prefer to pay at the end of a job. Doesn't always happen like this. You know, this is some contractors. This is how they live and feed their daughters. So you might have to pay them 25% up front, right? Get them started. Maybe pay their subs or whatever. What else? Pay 25% at the middle of it, and then when it's done. They're gonna say it's done, but it's done when you say it's done, right? And that's, you have to, and I'm getting better at this. I'm getting better at kind of speaking up because I have a kind heart, but real estate has proven you gotta have thick skin in this business. You know, they see you with cash. Be very upfront with that. That's why I prefer baby boomer generations who are retired. They're not gonna kill you,
Thank you, Rob.
Okay, ooh, big one. Call. Do not text.
Amen.
Hey, to the men. Save the miscommunication. Be clear, precise, and direct. Do not be afraid. They're humans. They just have a different way of operating. So we got to kind of meet them where they're at. And I'm glad that I spent a lot of the time working in my business to kind of set the foundation, so that way I could communicate with them now. If they say it's like, oh, $1,900 for whatever, I'll be like, okay, well, I got $1,500. Meet somewhere, negotiate with them. Cool thing about these contractors, when you start working with them more and more, they start helping you out now from a price standpoint. You build that relationship. Kind of going back to your team. You're not just doing one deal, hopefully. You can do this on a regular basis where everybody's like, boom, double, all that good stuff. Oh, and then never, I know it's like contractors, you just do a whole seminar on contractors. Never pay in full before the job is done. I'm not gonna spell any names out here to the dude that I worked with, because I don't wanna give him that much credit. But pay in full for the job, because even though it's like you trust somebody, at the end of the day, it's like, they gotta move on, y'all. Because when he started my job, he was finishing another job. Doing my job, he started another job. Before you know it, he's gone, you're out of money, and you gotta pay Dr. Jim to come fix everything, plus pay Jim. Let me see here. Okay, 3 bottlenecks. Any questions on deals, money, or contractors? We're moving on here, we're going close to the end.
With, do you have anyone that you walk through the building with before you buy it?
Jim.
So he's like.
Jim has
on
kind
that
of
guy?
taught me now, whereas now I have an idea. Like that first property at Auburn, no idea what a furnace was doing or operating.
Sure.
Water tanks, like, yeah, it looks good, right? You know, we're looking at like the HGTV stuff. It's like, oh, look at the kitchen here. But then you have like water running through your basement.
Mhm.
So, yes, so now I'm at the point where I can walk through a house now and I know what the heck I'm talking about.
Sure.
Again, that's why that consultant fee. Give me a call me. I'll come, I'll walk with you. All right, okay, so obviously, yeah, so then I guess that's that. So then, remember, one of the things is partnerships. And how you can partner with me. This is a shameless plug, people. Partner with me. Because, again, I love teaching. I didn't charge you to come today. I'm not asking for any money from you right now anyways, but when it comes down to do your first deal and you're wondering some things, give me a call. We can work something out. It could be a small fee that you figure into your renovation budget. It could be a small fee, less than what a realtor would charge you at the end of closing. We bring a lot of value, and we bring a lot of people who are good at what they do. Because if you have a full-time job and there's something you want to get into, because this does take a lot of time. And if you don't have the time to fully dive in to do this the right way, people are gonna know. There's only 100,000 people in this city. People will know. So that's my biggest thing is like reputation. I can help you just set the foundations for what it is that you want to do in this business, because we need more flippers. We already have a stigma that we do crappy jobs, or, you know, from like the housing crash, there's all these people that did really, really bad renovations. It's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Questions on that? I'll leave a link in the description. Just go ahead and click. No, that's funny. Okay, so all right, we're gonna wrap up here. Lastly, we're gonna talk about the scope of work. Just take 2 seconds, because I want to give you guys a break, and then we're gonna hear from the doctor himself, Jim. So this is my notepad. Get one of these. And is this? Yeah, this is what I brought. This is after I had it already under contract. I had this under contract before Thanksgiving, and I knew we had such a great thing going over at Oxford that I didn't want to disrupt the renovation of that place. Remember, you need more contractors, you want to grow. It's like, sweet, I've got 2 properties I could be doing right now, but I don't have the people to be in there. Oxford was a very, very smooth renovation process. I didn't want to disrupt that, but I didn't want to let this go either. So what did I do? I got it under contract, and I leveraged, remember, the terms a little bit, because the seller's sister was living here. So selfishly, I was like, I don't want to disrupt that, but I want to keep this. Okay, that was my selfish ambition. But then I spoke his language and was like, hey, I don't want to rush your sister out of here, you know, which really I was being sincere there. Nobody wants to move in the winter. She was a little older, you know, she has a kid and stuff. So I'm like, hey, why don't, so I wrote it in the contract. It's funny, I wrote a contract for a lawyer, and I told him, I'm like, let's close on or before June 30, or until January 31st. So that's why we closed on it a little bit, you know, even last week. We pushed it back an extra week, which to me, I'm like, hey, that's great. Because we're not gonna get any paint outside right now, or doing any of that stuff right now. So the scope of work, Jim and I met here. That turned out to be a really long day. I did a video. Some of you guys, did you guys watch that video? Anybody watch that video on Facebook? Saw it? Okay, so the parlor here. Are you guys even interested in knowing about this? Really quick, I'll fly through this.
Yeah.
So that little area, this is what we do. We go room by room to figure out what it is that we want to go through. And then when I give you guys this scope of work, during our break when you're walking around, you'll kind of see our visions, and we'd be open to your feedback. Trust me, I want to start to hire a designer. Because again, it's another one of those things where it's like, maybe I'm not qualified for this. I have an idea of good aesthetic, but there's people who specifically know design. So we're gonna paint that, we're gonna add windows, we're gonna do some flooring, all the little detailed stuff. You paint the vents, ceiling, new lights up there, remove carpets, refinish the floor, some question marks of things. Fireplace room. Everybody else like shiplap? I know. You got to stay with the trends, though. You got to stay with the trends. So we don't know exactly what this finished product is going to look like, but we know it's going to be, because it's already, I think, in my opinion, it looks great. But we'll make it pop that much more by doing that. That paneling is actually really nice, but it's going to go most likely. And I put a nice little coffee hole here already. So fix that stuff. Fireplace. Hire a fireplace expert who really knows what they're doing with that. What is that, wood burning?
Yes.
Wood burning. Jim was like, hey, do you want to switch it to gas? I was like, and to me, I'm just like, yeah, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, how much does that cost? It's like, so I don't know. So, you have options. Again, it's like, trust me, you can spend as much as you want on a renovation budget. But again, if the house is already maxed at whatever it is that you want to sell it at, the ARV, be very mindful of that. Obviously make something better. We're not going to cut any corners here. New thermostat, little stuff like that. We got the sunroom porch. We're going to keep enclosed. Okay, we're going to do some cool stuff in the windows there. We're going to add a door. Oh no, that's the sunroom porch. I don't even know what that is. Okay, back room. I wanted to talk about this back room. Anybody walk back there? You saw the laundry room? Okay. We're going to convert that into a half bath. I touched on that lightly, but that's going to make this place jump as far as value standpoint. Because one bathroom with 4 bedrooms, that's one of the things where this house, again, no house is perfect. Every house kind of has its things. You got to kind of give and take. I'll touch with you about the little cosmetic stuff that we're going to do. There may be some shiplap in there. We'll see. Kitchen, obviously the heartbeat of the house, right? It's what sells houses. So on kitchens, low end is anywhere between like $1,500 to $2,000 if you're just going to refinish the kitchens, redo the floors, put some appliances in there, and labor. This one's going to be a little bit more because obviously we're going to tear down those walls. We're doing new cabinets, put an island. We have to figure out where we want to put the stove. So we get this cleared out. We then measure it out. We either take it to Home Depot or Lowe's, and they give us a blueprint. They give us like a 3D version. Now we could actually kind of start to see. So clear it out, then do your measurements, figure all that stuff out. MBS kind of competing for the biz there for the kitchen, so we'll see. I'm excited to because we want to go with 42-inch cabinets probably for the kitchen. Those are special order if you're going to go through Lowe's. If you want to buy the stock cabinets, they're beautiful, they're great. They can't compete with those, but if you're going to go 42-inch, then you can kind of start to do, experiment.
But they don't come standard with soft close. That's what everybody wants.
This is true, whereas Lowe's does not, or Home Depot's. Okay. I like it. Okay, questions on kitchens, renovations. See, we'll be here all day if we're gonna start talking renovation stuff. That's why I want to bring Jim, because he's the expert there. But the open costum's gonna be cool. Like, how cool is that gonna look? And having a dining room here, you're entertaining, you're watching the game here. I don't know what we're gonna do there, but that's gonna be beautiful open space. I mean, you could entertain here. I mean, how many people are here? 20 maybe?
Do you math? Sorry. Do you like list this out and then like total up and then decide like this has gotta go? Like,
Yes,
otherwise-
yes. Kind of like process of elimination.
Yeah,
Yeah, because again, you wanna be mindful of that.
right. And then like, what are your staples? Like, yeah, in my mind, it's like, oh, that sounds great, knock a wall out, but like, where do you max out at? Like,
What do you mean?
Like the 30,000, like,
well, like I know your budget, okay, so yeah, like in your budget, but then also like, okay, you know what, like, yeah, I want the wall gone, but we're already putting in special cabinets or whatever, like, how do you,
Well,
Like, no,
the
just keep
kitchen
going.
is kind of one of those places where it's non-negotiable
okay,
to put the money in there.
sure,
Right? I want to leave a project knowing that like, hey, we did not cut any corners, but like we put the money where it's supposed to go, right? People are gonna hang out there, they want to watch their kids while they're cooking. Like, you spend 90% of your time in the kitchen. Other time, bathroom and sleep. So it's like the bedrooms are gonna be beautiful, the bathrooms are gonna be beautiful, and the kitchen's gonna be awesome.
like where it's at, yeah.
Yeah. The rest of the stuff, essentially, what we're seeing, guys, is all cosmetic, paint, lights. But paint, like, look at all the paint. Like, this is all yellow, so ceilings will be white. We'll figure out our color. We'll probably go back with like our gray and white scheme on this because it just works, and it's just so fresh. We did a different theme at our last one. We went with espresso cabinets, off-white walls, which I think look beautiful, but it's a particular buyer, for sure. So, and then that's when you start to kind of understand your themes. Going forward, it's like, hey, gray and white cabinets, or gray cabinets. Whereas off-white walls, you're gonna go with espresso like this. So you start to figure that stuff out.
Question.
Stairwell, yes.
If you said like you almost have a buyer pretty much under contract, would you take their opinions into consideration?
No.
with the color?
Unless they're buying it outright, yes. If they're gonna do like a lease option or something, then they can get a little. Because I'm still gonna be the owner,
Right.
technically. So we want to create this. At the end of the day, I mean, it's gonna be beautiful.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And that's why we go with like neutral walls and stuff, where somebody does want to come in here and do that stuff, then it's different. Yeah, it's different. Like if you have like a down payment and like somebody's pre-approved and they're ready to go, like yeah, that's bird in the hand all day. Garage. We're at a new garage door. Jim, I finally closed that officially. I don't know who it was, potentially, like, it was always like kind of cracked, and it's actually a cool door, but it's manually, so we'll have to see what we do there. We're gonna switch, obviously the front door is gonna get switched, all that stuff. The biggest thing, guys, on this job is gonna be our windows, our roof, and our kitchen are kind of like the big items, and obviously the bedroom, but the plumbing and stuff's already there, which is great. We have kicked around the idea of running some water lines upstairs, but we may not need to do that because the basement's huge, and by the time we finish the basement, it's gonna be clean. Go down and do your laundry. Would you rather have first floor laundry or have an extra bathroom? I would say bathroom. That's just my opinion. Having more bathrooms. Everybody go upstairs to the bathroom up there? It's not the greatest bathroom in the world, I'm gonna be honest, but it has good bones where a lot of that stuff can just get taken care of by Klein Bath. And then we'll add all new like vanities, toilets. We're gonna do some new tile there, add a new window. It's gonna get painted. We can talk more about that because we'll be here for a little bit. Q&A if you guys have questions. Otherwise, 8 minutes to spare. Questions?
For your first flip, did you look for mostly like a cosmetic company flip, or were you looking more?
I was just looking for a deal, period.
Yeah.
I luckily ran into something that was just cosmetic.
Okay. Now do you look for?
Well, I mean, we did a new kitchen and everything.
Yeah.
But again, it was kind of like my first rodeo.
wasn't like roof and siding and.
Yeah, no, nothing like that. We didn't do, we just painted a little bit outside and stuff, but
Yeah.
Now do you look for like a middle of the road or like?
it depends. If you're buying it right, it's like, I'm okay maybe taking on not a crazy full job, but. All right, guys, awesome stuff.
Let's screw that deal up.
Guys, if you want any of these books sent to you, just let me know.
So like if we had started with SMS, you probably would have made 30 grand at least.
Thanks. Thanks for coming by. I'm glad you guys came by.
Yes, thank you.
Hope you learned something.
Yeah, we were talking about this.
Yeah.
We were talking about
Trying to look at
super
our
interesting.
Yeah.
What we need to do, so that's where we're just trying to educate ourselves and figure out what the first steps are. Other than that, that's a good idea.
Hi, how are you? Hey, how's it going?
Do your formula and stuff.
How are
You
you?
walked in, I was like waiting for it. Just pull trigger.
I didn't see you.
You know, so that way, because I know you guys have big visions for what you want to do.
What are you thinking for like the partnership? What role are you wanting to play? Just to walk through and be a part of?
No, it could be kind of like a project manager. It's just like mentorship, right? It's just like, hey, so in that way, you know what to do going forward. Yeah, if you choose to want to do more. You know what I'm saying? Or if it's like, hey, I'm gonna just figure this into my renovation budget, and not even be a part of it, period. So, because to me, it's not a lot of time out of my schedule to manage, but take the headache off. And then
And
eventually,
there's so much
Help
different,
balance the
like,
risk a little bit too.
yeah.
even just like, hey, what do you think about this, or this is going?
Yeah, you guys make all the decisions about like how you want to, what you want to use, what you want to do, all that stuff. And then
This is work.
and I'm able to kind of provide that.
Yeah, contractors.
Yeah. It's okay, gutted out all the trees.
You would trust people.
Right.
How much is a man paying?
You know what I mean? And he's not doing ceilings contractors.
Yeah, just do it, just do it, I'll
Yeah.
make money.
Well, yeah, at
I'll
this
take
point,
it.
at this point, it's like, it took a while. But now it's like,
Keep the wood and then.
let's go, because, you know, it's just been proven over and over.
Yeah.
And now it's like, it's
Yeah, it was awesome.
I wanted to do because like you guys have like Sue and Taylor, like other people. There's some people
Let
who
me
are doing
turn
things
my
currently and like.
and you take out the wood and you keep the wood.
Where are we missing where we can now fix that so that you can move on? That's kind of the goal. So, it's that baby, man.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Good to see you guys. Good stuff. Thanks, brother, man. Appreciate it.
Yes.
I got creative now.
Yeah, you just have the hour.
Yeah, I wanted to keep it private. I knew every last bit. I wanted people here who really kind of just aired stuff.
Knock it down there.
Yeah, this flows out of us too because it's what we do.